So imagine you're preparing for, well, basically the most important 3 hours of your life.
Right.
You've studied for years, you've uh, memorized giant textbooks, you've sacrificed sleep, social life, all of it.
Yeah, the classic pre-med grind.
Exactly. But before you even get to look at a single question about, human biology or organic chemistry, you have to pass this completely different kind of test.
It's a brutal one.
It really is. It's this uncompromising test of compliance where, like, a long sleeve or a pair of sneakers or just a metal belt buckle could instantly disqualify you.
Yeah, it's a profound shift in perspective, honestly, because we usually think of a test as an interaction between a student and a piece of paper, right?
Right, just you and the exam.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But at this scale, the primary interaction is actually between the human body and this massively paranoid security apparatus.
Wow.
I mean, the physical environment itself becomes your first adversary.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into the official exam day rules and instructions for the NEET UG 2026 exam.
Scheduled for May 3rd, 2026.
Right, May 3rd. And for those listening, this is the National Eligibility Cum Entrance Test. It is the singular gateway for medical school admissions in India.
Millions of aspiring doctors taking it all at once.
Millions. So we're going to unpack the precise logistics, the dress codes, and the prohibited items that are mandated for all these candidates.
And the mission here isn't just to list off what these rules are, but to really explore the fascinating why behind them.
Exactly. We want to see how these standard testing authorities basically engineer an environment of absolute security.
Yeah.
And, what this extreme level of control reveals about human ingenuity.
And the incredible high stakes of modern examinations. Yeah.
I was thinking about it, and the best analogy I could come up with is that it's like going through maximum security airport screening, except instead of boarding a plane for a vacation, you are stepping into this crucible that will determine your entire career path.
Yeah.
And you're doing it all while wearing slippers.
Which is, a very specific requirement we will definitely get into.
Yes, we will. But, before we even look at what candidates are wearing, we really have to look at the timeline.
Time is the first weapon.
It is. Because control in a secure environment, it doesn't start with clothes. It begins with manipulating time.
Right.
So let's look at the basic schedule. The exam date is May 3rd, 2026. And the actual exam timing, the window where you take the test, is 2:000 p.m. to 5:000 p.m.
A standard 3-hour block.
Yeah, pretty standard. But the center entry, the time they start letting people in, begins at 11:00 a.m.
Which means the psychological marathon starts a full 3 hours before the first test booklet is even unsealed.
3 hours. I mean, what is practically happening during this massive window? Because funneling millions of highly anxious teenagers through a choke point sounds like an operational nightmare.
Oh, it's a massive logistical coordination effort.
Yeah.
The rules mandate biometric verification and physical frisking for every single person.
A great person.
Every single one. So try to picture the sheer mechanics of this. You have thousands of test centers across the country, right? At each one, candidates are lining up to have their fingerprints scanned, their irises mapped, and their bodies wanted with handheld metal detectors.
Just to get in the building.
Exactly. So the logistics demand that 11:00 a.m. start. You simply cannot run a high-fidelity biometric scan on 1,000 people in, 20 minutes.
Guess not. No.
I mean, iris scanners require precise positioning. Fingerprint readers require clean, dry hands.
Oh, and these are stressed out teenagers.
Exactly. Which is a huge variable when dealing with students who are literally sweating through immense stress.
That makes sense.
But, the true cost of this logistical necessity is really borne by the candidate's nervous system.
Because once you clear that biometric choke point, you just sit there, right?
You sit in a completely sterile room.
No notes.
No notes to do last-minute revisions, no phone to distract yourself, no music to regulate your mood, nothing.
Wow.
You are confined to a desk, just marinating in your own rising adrenaline. And we know from cognitive psychology that sustained vigilance.
Like holding that state of high alert.
Yeah, holding that alert state without any outlet, it rapidly depletes your executive function.
Oh, wow. So you're exhausting your brain before the test even starts.
Precisely. The cortisol spike that ideally helps you focus during the exam is arriving, hours too early.
It sounds awful. It's like being quarantined in a semiconductor clean room or something.
That's a great way to put it. The testing authority needs the environment completely stabilized. They need the dust of the outside world to settle completely before the test begins.
But, looking at the specific timestamps in this protocol, there's this structural tension that I am really struggling to understand.
Oh, the 1.15 versus 1.30 thing?
Yes. The rules dictate that candidates must be in their seats by 1.15 p.m.
Right.
Yet the absolute last entry at the main gates is 1.3 p.m.
Yeah, it's a bit of a chronological paradox.
Exactly. If I'm designing a system, closing the gates a full 30 minutes before the exam begins at 2.0 p.m. feels unnecessarily punitive.
Sure.
Especially when the in-seat time is 1.15, which overlaps it. I mean, unless they are treating that final 30 minutes as a literal quarantine zone.
Your intuition about a quarantine zone is exactly right.
All right.
It highlights the chaotic reality of exam days versus the ideal timeline. Let's break down that operational friction.
Okay, lay it out for me.
So the 1.15 p.m. in-seat mandate, that is the administrative target. You need the room static by then.
Static meaning nobody moving around.
Right. That gives the invigilators a solid 45 minutes to distribute the OMR sheets, verify roll numbers, and read the binding instructions.
Because you can't have people walking in during that.
Exactly. You cannot have candidates trickling in while specialized serialized documents are being handed out. It creates blind spots where a booklet could go missing.
Okay, so 1.15 p.m. is about domesticating the chaos of the room.
Yeah.
But why the draconian 1.3 p.m. gate closure? I mean, the rule explicitly notes that latecomers are banned under any circumstances.
These are exceptions.
Like flat tire, derailed train, a medical emergency, it doesn't matter. You are out.
The 1.30 p.m. hard cutoff is a structural airlock. That's the best way to think about it.
An airlock.
Yeah. It is designed specifically to sever the internal exam environment from the external world. It completely neutralizes the threat of organized solver gangs and last-minute digital leaks.
Okay, wait. Walk me through the mechanics of the leak. How does slamming a gate shut half an hour early actually stop a digital transmission? Because cell signals don't care about gates.
Okay, let's construct a threat model. Historically, if an exam paper is going to leak on the day of the test, it happens right at the moment of distribution.
Which will be around 1.15.
Right. So imagine a compromised center manager breaks the seal on the exam trunks at 1.15 p.m.
Okay.
They use a smartphone to snap photos of the pages, and they instantly broadcast them over an encrypted messaging app to a syndicate.
Like a gang operating out of a hotel room miles away.
Exactly. The solver gang.
Right.
The gang has subject matter experts ready to go. They start churning out the answers. Now, if the exam gates remained open until, say, 1.55 p.m.
So 5 minutes before the test?
Right. If they stayed open that late, a candidate waiting in a car outside could receive that solved answer key on their phone at 1.45 p.m.
Oh, wow.
They could memorize the sequence of multiple choice answers, sprint to the gate, clear a hasty security check, and sit down, just as the bell rings.
Wow. So they basically bring the answers in their short-term memory.
Precisely. But by enforcing a merciless 1.30 p.m. gate closure, the testing agency builds a temporal firewall.
A temporal firewall. I love that term.
Right. Even if a rogue official leaks the paper at 1.14 p.m. and the solver gang turns around an answer key by 1.4 p.m., the candidates are already locked inside.
Inside the Faraday cage of the exam center.
Exactly. They have no phones, and no one new is allowed to enter. The airlock holds.
That is a staggering calculus.
It is.
The system assumes the absolute worst of any delay to protect the macro integrity of the test. You are geographically isolating millions of candidates from the rest of the planet 30 minutes before the event even goes live.
Yes, and they do it by sacrificing the individual who genuinely just got stuck in traffic.
Yeah, that poor kid who had a flat tire is just collateral damage.
They are. And that isolation brings us to the next layer of the security apparatus. Because once you are inside the airlock, the scrutiny transitions.
From your punctuality to your physical canvas.
Exactly. What you're wearing.
Right, because we've neutralized the threat of external communication via time. But a sterile timeline doesn't matter if the body itself is compromised.
No, it doesn't.
Which brings us to the actual physical presence of the candidates, specifically the incredibly rigid dress codes.
They are very, very specific.
So looking at the guidelines for male candidates, the allowed items are light-colored, simple clothes, half-sleeve shirts or Polo T-shirts, so simple trousers or jeans.
Yeah.
And the restrictions are blunt. No big logos, no large designs, and absolutely no full-sleeve garments.
And for female candidates, the baseline is equally austere.
What are the rules there?
Simple suits or salwars, light-colored fabrics without heavy embroidery,
Yeah.
half-sleeve tops, and an absolute zero-tolerance ban on all jewelry.
All jewelry.
All of it. Earrings, rings, nose pins, bracelets, pendants, all of it is prohibited.
Wow. I really want to dig into the engineering behind these specific textile choices because, on the surface, light-colored and simple just sounds like they want the room to look orderly.
Like a uniform.
Exactly. But based on our threat model discussion, I suspect every single adjective in this dress code is a highly targeted countermeasure against specific hardware.
Oh, you are looking at a literal battleground of optical physics.
Optical physics. Okay, let's start with the most obvious mandate, the half sleeves. Why ban long sleeves?
Well, what's the traditional assumption?
The old ink on the forearm trick. You roll up your sleeves, the invigilator sees you have nothing written on your skin, and you proceed.
Right. That is the legacy reason. But the contemporary threat is entirely wiring and localized hardware.
Wiring, like literally running wires down your arm.
Yes. A full sleeve provides a continuous opaque conduit from the torso down to the wrist. If a candidate is utilizing a micro Bluetooth communication setup, the architecture of that system usually involves a concealed smartphone or like a bulky battery pack strapped to the abdomen or the small of the back.
Oh, wow. So they tape it to their torso.
Exactly. And to get the signal to an earpiece, an induction loop often needs to be run up the arm to sit closer to the ear, or a wire needs to reach a transmitter taped to the wrist.
And a full sleeve provides the necessary cover for that infrastructural wiring.
It does. By forcing candidates to expose their forearms, security personnel conducting those physical frisks can visually clear the arm in a fraction of a second.
It removes the physical volume needed to hide hardware.
Exactly. But the true technological warfare is happening in the color and pattern restrictions.
Okay, the mandate for light-colored clothes, and the ban on big logos for boys and heavy embroidery for girls. I was wondering about this. How does a logo compromise an exam?
This is a direct countermeasure against pinhole camera technology.
Pinhole cameras, like spy stuff.
Miniaturization has reached a point where high-definition camera lenses are scarcely larger than a grain of sand.
That's terrifying.
It is. A solver gang will provide a candidate with a modified garment. The camera needs to be positioned on the chest to have a clear line of sight to the question paper resting on the desk.
So they weave it right into the fabric.
Yeah. If a candidate wears a black shirt or a shirt with a very dark, complex, rubberized graphic logo on the chest.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. A tiny black camera aperture becomes effectively invisible.
Because it just blends into the dark design.
Exactly. The human eye, especially an exhausted security guard scanning hundreds of students an hour, cannot differentiate between the black thread of a logo and the black void of a millimeter-wide lens.
Wow. And I guess heavy embroidery serves the exact same camouflage purpose.
It does. The dense thread work provides physical depth to hide the microcircuitry and the battery required to power the lens.
It's visual camouflage. You are literally disrupting the silhouette of the device.
Precisely. But if the testing agency mandates a flat, light-colored fabric like a plain yellow or baby blue half-sleeve shirt, that optical camouflage is instantly destroyed.
Because a black lens aperture set against a flat white cotton shirt stands out with high contrast.
Exactly. The fabric is neutralized as a threat vector because it can no longer mask the anomaly.
That is just, it's a bizarre intersection of biology, fashion, and espionage.
It really is. Yeah.
The authorities are basically forcing candidates to wear garments that act as blank canvases, ensuring any technological aberration is instantly obvious. Okay, but what about the absolute ban on jewelry? I mean, even tiny items like nose pins. If a nose pin is a millimeter wide, how is that a threat?
So there are two intersecting problems with jewelry. First, the technological miniaturization we just discussed applies to audio receivers as well.
Oh, microtransmitters.
Yeah. They can be housed in the casing of an earring or a thick ring. I know it sounds extreme, but the stakes of medical admission completely justify the cost of bespoke cheating hardware.
A custom Bluetooth earring.
Wow.
And what's the second problem?
The operational friction of the metal detectors.
Ah, the wands.
Right. The primary physical screening tool at these centers is the handheld metal detector wand. These wands operate by generating an electromagnetic field.
Okay.
And when that field passes over metal, it induces eddy currents in the object, which create their own magnetic field that the wand detects, triggering a beep.
Right, right. And the wand doesn't know if it's a microchip or just a piece of silver?
Exactly. The wand is a binary instrument. It only registers anomaly. It just says metal here.
Right.
If you allow candidates to wear earrings, rings, and metal belt buckles, the wand is going to alert on almost every single person in the queue.
Oh, I see.
Every alert requires the security officer to stop the line, perform a targeted manual pat-down, visually inspect the metal object, and then make a subjective judgment call about whether that earring looks suspicious.
Which destroys the throughput rate.
It totally halts it.
If you have 2,000 students trying to get through before that draconian 1:30 p.m. cutoff, you cannot afford a localized investigation into every single belt buckle.
Exactly. By banning all metallic accessories and jewelry, the testing authority calibrates the baseline of the human body to 0.
To 0.
Yes. A candidate steps up, the wand passes over them. If it beeps, the system instantly knows there is an unauthorized anomaly present.
There's no ambiguity.
None. There are no false positives from a nose ring. The zero-tolerance policy isn't really about the jewelry itself. It is about protecting the diagnostic clarity of the screening process.
It strips away all individuality. I was thinking about this, and my analogy for this is that the testing authority is fundamentally forcing everyone to dress like an NPC.
An NPC?
Yeah, a non-player character in a video game. You know, the generic background characters that populate a virtual city, all wearing the exact same featureless, textureless clothing.
Oh, right, yeah.
They are stripping away all style, all personal expression, all socioeconomic signaling, just to create a perfectly neutral, auditable baseline.
That's a perfect analogy because in the architecture of security, individuality is simply another word for vulnerability.
Customization introduces variables.
And variables provide hiding spots.
Well, and this demand for absolute conformity, it does not stop at the ankles.
No, it doesn't.
We've cleared the torso, the arms, and the pockets, but the ground game, the footwear restrictions, that is where the psychological impact of these rules really comes into focus.
Footwear is a fascinating study in the evolution of exam security because it really bridges the gap between historical low-tech cheating and modern high-tech threats.
The rule is incredibly blunt. It says, allowed, only simple low-heeled slippers or open sandals, and then prohibited. Shoes and boots are strictly not allowed.
Strict ban.
Let me push back on this a little. Banning heavy steel-toed boots or massive platform shoes, that makes sense, but banning a standard thin-soled canvas sneaker, it feels jarring.
It does feel jarring, yeah.
I mean, you are preparing to take an exam that determines your professional destiny, and you are mandated to shuffle into the hall dressed for a quick trip to the beach.
It's weird, right? But to understand the total ban on closed footwear, we have to look at the geometry of a shoe.
The geometry.
Yeah. A shoe is essentially a highly structured, enclosed cavity that you wear on your body.
Okay, that's one way to describe it.
Historically, before digital networks, the thick rubber soles of sneakers or the hollowed-out heels of boots, those were the premier hiding spots for physical contraband.
Like pages torn from textbooks.
Exactly. Meticulously folded cheat sheets.
A literal, physical Trojan horse.
Yes. And as the threat evolved from paper to silicon, the shoe remained the perfect container. You can easily embed a secondary smartphone, a high-capacity lithium-ion power bank, or a digital transmitter into the sole of a sneaker.
But couldn't the security team just scan the shoes with the metal detector?
They could. But think about the logistics of resolution again.
Oh, right, the throughput.
If a wand beeps over a shoe, the candidate has to unlace it, take it off.
The guard has to inspect the insole.
The guard might have to squeeze the sole to feel for hollow cavities, run the wand inside, and then the candidate has to put it back on and tie it.
And you multiply that by, what, 2.5 million candidates?
The infrastructure would just buckle under the time delay.
So the slipper mandate is an operational shortcut.
It is the ultimate shortcut. It enforces transparency through exposure.
Because an open-toed, thin-soled rubber slipper offers no physical volume.
None. A security guard can clear the candidate's feet with a single, instantaneous downward glance. You simply cannot hide a battery pack in a sandal strap.
That makes a lot of sense. But beyond the security mechanics, there is a profound sociological side effect to this footwear rule.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about the demographic spread of the millions taking this test. You have candidates from highly affluent urban centers sitting right next to candidates from rural, economically disadvantaged backgrounds.
Yeah, a massive cross-section of society.
And in normal teenage society, sneakers are massive cultural currency. They are the ultimate status symbol.
Oh yeah, sneakerhead culture is huge.
But here, the wealth signaling is completely neutralized.
Completely?
Yes. You might have one student who normally wears $500 designer sneakers and another in worn-out, hand-me-down shoes. But at the gate of the exam center, that hierarchy is obliterated.
Everyone is reduced to wearing the humblest, most basic form of footwear imaginable.
It creates a state of radical equality within the exam hall.
It does. When everyone is shuffling in cheap rubber sandals, nobody is intimidating anyone else with their gear. The armor of socioeconomic status is stripped away at the door.
That's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing differentiating you from the person at the next desk is the preparation inside your head.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've neutralized the threat of the physical body. The clothes are clean, the shoes are clear. The candidate has survived the biometric choke point and the quarantine timeline.
They're in the building.
They walk into the hall and locate their assigned seat, but, a sterile body doesn't matter if the environment immediately surrounding them is compromised.
Right. The desk.
Which brings us to the actual desk. What is the microeconomy of this highly regulated space? What is allowed into that immediate physical radius?
The curation of the desk is as precise and honestly as ruthless as a surgical tray. You are allowed almost nothing.
Let's review the inventory of existence for those 3 hours. Allowed items: a printed admit card, a valid ID proof like an Aadhaar card, PAN card, or passport, a self-declaration form, passport-size photos, a transparent water bottle, and a specific provision for diabetic students allowing limited food items. That is literally it.
Paper, plastic, and water.
Paper, plastic, and water. The banned list is where the true philosophy of the testing authority really reveals itself.
Oh, for sure.
Obviously, no electronics, no mobile phones, no smartwatches, no Bluetooth earphones, no calculators. But they also ban all standard stationery containers. No geometry boxes, no pencil pouches. And the accessory ban includes wallets, handbags, belts, caps, and goggles.
It's a clean sweep.
I want to start with the geometry box. I remember in school, a geometry box was the fundamental toolkit of any student. Why ban the container entirely? Why not just ask them to open it?
Because the container itself is structurally deceptive. A traditional metal or plastic geometry box has hinges, double layers, sliding compartments.
Thick walls.
Thick walls, exactly.
Yes.
It is historically the most frequently utilized hiding spot for cheat sheets.
Oh, yeah. I remember people trying that.
Students would painstakingly engrave formulas onto the inside of the lid or build false bottoms to house tiny scrolls of paper. And in the digital age, those false bottoms can house circuitry.
So rather than spending time dismantling and inspecting every single pencil box, they just eliminate the variable.
They remove the architecture of concealment. If you need a pen, it rests bare on the wooden desk. You cannot hide a microchip inside the transparent casing of a single ballpoint pen provided by the center.
The emphasis is entirely on visual transparency, which I guess you see reflected in the water bottle rule as well.
Yes, the bottle must be completely clear.
Because a solid metal hydro flask or an opaque plastic bottle could conceal anything.
Anything from a rolled-up syllabus to a customized audio recorder. A transparent bottle proves its innocence passively just by sitting on the desk.
It requires zero cognitive load from the invigilator to verify it.
Exactly.
But let's look at the ban on calculators. We are talking about a medical entrance exam heavily weighted with complex physics and physical chemistry equations.
Very calculation heavy.
Right. The fact that these candidates are forced to perform high-level manual arithmetic in a high-stress environment without even a basic scientific calculator seems almost archaic.
It might seem archaic, but a calculator is an absolute black box of processing power.
A black box.
Yeah. Modern scientific calculators can be easily reprogrammed to store vast amounts of text, complex formulas, and entire reference tables right in their memory banks.
I didn't even think about that.
Furthermore, the outer casing of a calculator is voluminous enough to easily hollow out and replace with a smartphone motherboard and a cellular antenna.
Oh my God.
The screen is already there, the keyboard is already there. To a security wand, it's supposed to beep because it's electronic, right?
Oh, wow. It provides the perfect alibi for unauthorized hardware.
It does. It has a built-in excuse for setting off the metal detector.
So the authority decides that forcing students to do manual long division is a worthy trade-off for eliminating a massive technological blind spot.
Yep.
It really highlights the central theme here. Convenience and efficiency are always sacrificed at the altar of security.
Every single time.
But the rule that genuinely stuns me, just from a purely logistical standpoint, is the ban on wallets and phones. Not just in the hall, but on the premises.
Right, you can't even bring them to the gate.
If I am an 18-year-old taking this test and I have no wallet, no cash, no ID other than my single piece of paper, and no phone to communicate, how do I exist before and after the test? How do I get a cab home? How do I buy a meal if I am delayed?
Well, you don't. You fundamentally lose your independence.
It's crazy.
This rule forces a systemic behavioral change, not just on the candidate, but on their entire family unit.
It's like dropping a scuba diver into the deep ocean.
I like that analogy.
The student is the diver, plunging into the sterile, isolated environment with absolutely nothing but the bare essentials to survive the task.
Right.
And the parent or guardian waiting outside the gates is the boat on the surface holding the oxygen line.
Yes.
They hold the phone, the keys, the cash, the transportation. The diver has to emerge 3 hours later, exhausted, and locate their specific boat in a sea of thousands just to function in society again.
That analogy is perfectly accurate. The security perimeter of the exam extends outward, distorting the reality of the surrounding city streets.
How so?
You will see thousands of parents clustered in parks, waiting in running cars, literally holding plastic bags containing their children's belts, wallets, and digital lives.
Well,
The institution forces the family to become the logistical support scaffolding because the institution outright refuses to take responsibility for storing these items securely.
it is a massive transfer of logistical burden.
It really is.
But within this incredibly rigid, zero-tolerance ecosystem, a system that forces you into rubber slippers, strips your wallet, and quarantines you from the world, there is a fascinating point of flexibility.
The medical exception.
Yes. The rules explicitly carve out an exception for diabetic students, allowing them limited food items like sugar tablets or fruits.
It is a rare acknowledgement of biological reality over security protocol.
Because a severe hypoglycemic event during a 3-hour lockdown isn't just an inconvenience.
No, it is a medical emergency that could be fatal.
Right.
The authorities understand that absolute biological necessity supersedes the sterile field. However, even these items are heavily regulated. They're usually required to be carried in transparent packaging.
So even the flexibilities have rigid rules. Which, this friction between absolute uniformity and unavoidable personal necessity leads us perfectly into the final dimension of our deep dive.
Religious accommodations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How does a system so utterly obsessed with standardization, transparency, and stripping away variables handle deeply held constitutional and religious requirements?
This is where the immovable object of mass security meets the unstoppable force of civil liberties.
The guidelines explicitly state under a special case provision that customary or religious attire, such as the hijab, turban, or burqa, is allowed in the examination hall.
Right.
So unlike the generic NPC baseline we discussed earlier, candidates are permitted to wear these items.
They are.
However, there is a massive logistical condition attached. Candidates wearing such attire must declare it in their original application form months in advance.
Months in advance, yes.
And they must report to the center at least 1 hour earlier than standard reporting time for mandatory checking.
The bureaucratic foresight here is actually quite sophisticated, honestly.
Oh, so?
Well, the testing agency operates within a secular, pluralistic democracy. They simply cannot outright ban constitutionally protected religious garments without inviting immense legal challenges and violating fundamental rights.
Right, they have to respect the Constitution.
But from a purely structural security standpoint, voluminous garments, layers of thick fabric wrapping the head or body, are the exact variables the light clothing mandate was designed to eliminate.
Because as we established earlier with the heavy embroidery, thick layers of fabric provide depth.
Yes.
And depth provides a hiding spot for transmitters, wires, and earpieces.
Exactly. A turban or a burqa involves layers that a standard visual scan cannot penetrate, and that a quick wave of a metal detector wand might not fully resolve without raising ambiguities.
So the testing authority acknowledges the right to the identity, but they recognize the garment introduces a severe operational vulnerability into their sterile environment.
Yes. So they demand a high price in return for this accommodation,
Yeah.
prior notice and extra time.
Let's unpack the prior notice first. Why do they need to know on the application form months before the exam?
Resource allocation, pure and simple.
Okay.
You cannot subject a candidate wearing a religious garment to a hasty public pat-down. It requires sensitivity, dignity, and specialized protocols.
Of course.
The center needs to set up private and closed frisking booths. They need to ensure they have an adequate number of security personnel of the same gender to conduct thorough physical checks.
Right, that requires planning.
If 50 candidates suddenly show up at the gate wearing heavy religious garments without warning, the security infrastructure would instantly bottleneck and collapse.
It reminds me of requesting a specialized medical accommodation on a commercial airline flight.
That's a good comparison.
The aviation system is incredibly rigid, but it can handle deviations like providing wheelchair assistance at the gate or transporting specialized oxygen equipment.
But the airline needs to know weeks in advance to stage the personnel and the hardware.
Exactly. You can't just arrive at the boarding gate 5 minutes before departure and demand a completely different logistical protocol.
The system can bend, but it needs time to calculate the stress. And that brings us to the second requirement, arriving an hour early.
This is the time tax that these specific candidates are forced to pay.
The time tax, yes.
Let's calculate that tax. We discussed the brutal timeline in the beginning. The standard candidate arrives at 11:00 a.m. for a 2:00 p.m. exam, enduring a 3-hour wait.
Right.
If a candidate wearing a hijab or turban has to arrive an hour earlier than the standard time, they're looking at a 4-hour waiting period.
4 hours of sustained vigilance in a sterile environment.
Wow.
It is an incredible test of mental endurance.
The constitutional friction is so visible here. You are granted the right to maintain your religious identity, but the institution ensures that the security integrity is maintained by shifting the burden of time onto the individual.
You pay for your accommodation with your own adrenaline, sitting in isolation for an extra 60 minutes.
It adds a whole new layer of mental fortitude required to survive the day.
It perfectly illustrates the central thesis of the exam day protocols. Fairness through exhausting verification.
Fairness through exhausting verification. Well, let's pull back and summarize this entire journey.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. We have traced the path of a NEET 2026 candidate from the moment they arrive at the gates. We've seen how time is weaponized to create a quarantine airlock.
We've dissected the optical physics behind light-colored half-sleeves neutralizing pinhole cameras.
We've explored the radical equalization of forcing every demographic into simple rubber slippers.
And we've navigated the intense micro economy of the desk, where even the transparent water bottle is a passive security asset.
Distilling it all down, it is abundantly clear that the NEET exam is not merely an academic assessment of biology, chemistry, and physics.
The academic test is just the final hurdle.
Exactly. The primary event is a grueling, multi-hour endurance trial of compliance, stress management, and physical surrender.
You are asked to spend years memorizing the intricate systems of the human body. But on the day of the exam, your own physical body is the primary obstacle you must overcome.
It's so ironic. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Even if you never plan to take a medical entrance exam or sit for a bar exam or apply for high-level security clearance, why does the architecture of these rules matter?
That's the big question.
I think understanding the extreme, almost paranoid lengths institutions must go to in order to guarantee fairness reveals a profound truth about human nature.
It maps the eternal cat-and-mouse game of human ingenuity.
Yeah. Whatever society constructs a high-stakes gatekeeper, a test that dictates immense future earning potential and social status, there will inevitably be extraordinary measures designed to protect that gate.
And conversely, there will always be a shadow industry of solvers, hackers, and smugglers trying to invent microscopic ways to circumvent it.
The rules we've unpacked today, the dress codes, the frisking, the transparent bottles, are just a snapshot of the current state of that arms race.
Just a snapshot.
Which leaves me with a final, slightly terrifying thought for you to mull over.
Right.
We've talked extensively about Bluetooth devices hidden in earrings, wires running down sleeves, and cameras camouflaged in shirt logos.
The hardware of today.
Right. But technology only moves in one direction. It gets smaller, and it gets more integrated.
The trend is toward the invisible.
Exactly. As wearable technology shrinks from the millimeter scale down to the molecular level as we move towards subdermal audio implants, or smart contact lenses capable of projecting text directly onto the retina, how long will dress codes and metal detector wands actually remain effective?
It's a daunting prospect for any testing authority. When the cheating device is no longer strapped to the body, but integrated inside the biological system itself, a mandate for half-sleeve shirts and open-toed slippers becomes completely obsolete.
So will the medical entrance exams of the 2030s require candidates to pass through an MRI machine before entering the hall?
Maybe.
Will they be required to strip down and wear standard-issue sensor-blocking hospital scrubs provided at the door?
It's entirely possible.
Or will the very fundamental nature of testing itself have to evolve entirely, moving away from rote memorization in a centralized hall, simply because securing the physical environment against microscopic technology becomes fundamentally impossible?
That's the ultimate disruption.
The authorities are relying on their current version of X-ray visual checks, magnetic wands, enforced transparency. But when the threats go microscopic and subdermal, that X-ray machine breaks down.
The waters of human ingenuity are constantly rising.
They really are.